Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the India-China standoff. As we all know, that situation is getting worse by each passing day. Whereas the Indians, they have also beefed up their security and they have called in more troops from certain areas to look after this particular area. And then on top, when you talk about China, obviously Chinese are pretty well equipped in that part of the world as well. And when you talk about China, remember one thing, it's not only the economic giant. China has developed a lot of military power over the period of time. PLA is not a joke. Whether you talk about their navy, talk about the air force, you talk about their military, they exactly know what they're up to and what sort of a challenge they have in their hands. Now, when we talk about the current development, obviously India is claiming that they have been able to take two mountains from the Chinese, whereas the Chinese at the same time, they are in fact still positioned at one of the top mountains from where they can actually look around, and that is the key point, key post also, from where you can actually have the access to look all around you. Second important point is about is India trying to destabilize the region? Now that is something pretty important as well. And when we talk about the responsibility of the people, that is also something very important, because when you look at the statements being issued by the Indians, especially by the media, it seems as if the war is imminent. It is going to happen in a day or two. Irresponsible Indian media, irresponsible Indian politicians, irresponsible statements from their military seniors. What are they up to? Are they trying to destabilize the entire South Asia? What exactly is brewing in the mind of the movers and shakers sitting in Delhi? That is going to be the major question of the hour. We'll be talking about it in detail, what exactly is going on and where can it lead. We have with us in our studio, on my right, is Qamar Cheema Saab. Cheema Saab needs no introduction. He's a senior analyst, foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much, Cheema Saab, for your time. And we have with us Tariq Pirzada Saab. Again, needs no introduction. He's a known personality, senior analyst, and also a senior analyst, and as well as a political commentator. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And we'll be also talking to Dr. Muhammad Khan Saab, again, who is a senior analyst, and he'll be joining us on Skype. Dr. Saab, thank you very much for taking out your time and being a part of our show. Thank you very much once again. But let me put your first question to you, Cheema Saab. When we talk about the Indian and the Chinese standoff in the region, everything started when we got to know that there is something going on out there. That was about the skirmish between the Chinese as well as the Indian troops, in which about 2021 Indian troops, they lost their life. Not even a single bullet was fired. But now we are hearing from the Indian side, they claim that the shots were fired from the Chinese side, whereas the Chinese claim that the Indians were the first ones to provoke the situation. Where is it leading? What exactly is brewing in the minds of the Indian decision makers? So let's start off from there. Cheema Saab.
Well, I think this is an interesting question, that what is in the mind of the Indian leadership. I think the Indian leadership was thinking that the way they are dealing Kashmir, they could deal with the Ladakh. So the way India changed its map, they have put the changes on the map and having the excitation on their territory, and the Chinese exactly know that India is trying to project itself. India is trying to create an image of Prime Minister Modi where they believe that whatever they will do, the world will never notice. So the world may not notice what is happening in Kashmir, but the Chinese are noticing that the sovereignty has been compromised with this new map which has come up with the cartography department of India. So I think now the Chinese, what they are doing, that they are planning that we need to take on Prime Minister Modi. And by taking on Prime Minister Modi, they want to dent Modi's image, because Modi's image is being played up much by the BJP and by the party. And China understand that a person like Prime Minister Modi and a big country like India with this big image is not good for China. And this belligerence which has been shown by the Indians, this shows that the Jaishankar, who has been all time for his entire life been a diplomat, he seems a hawk. He has been a hawk for Pakistan. Recently in his new book, The India Way, he said that we are following zero policy with Pakistan. With China, what they are doing, they are going for decoupling. It means they are disengaging from China in terms of the border issues and in terms of economy. So earlier, before that, the Congress party in India, they had kept the border issues separate from the economy and culture and the other things. But now Jay Shankar has mixed economy and the border issues together. Now what matters is that what Indians are thinking, that this is a flawed policy, because China has brought all these 5G and fiber optics in these areas. So that means that if India goes for decoupling with China, it means that there will be a delayed information revolution in India. So it means India will not be in a position to get benefits of all the technological revolution in shape of 5G is coming in China. So I think, in my understanding, the Indian government is playing up this right-wing card as far as with Pakistan, but with China they are playing a card that India is a potential civilizational power. So they believe that we should be seen from that lens of civilizational power, because we have this capacity, and they believe that we need the world to understand from that lens. So that is why they are in competition with China, because they believe that being in competition in China, we could be in a more highlighted position. And the way Americans have made this Indo-Pacific, this Asian Pacific region as an Indo-Pacific command, the French have introduced their Indo-Pacific strategy for Indo-Pacific. So they believe that their demand and their is increasing. So all what we need to do is that we have to show that we are a potential power, we are a civilizational power, we can come in competition with China, and that can help us grow in front of international community. But I think India is a potential power, but India does not have a capability and capacity at this moment, because Indian economy, it doesn't matter to China if India is not having any kind of a trade, because the total trade China does with the entire of the world, the Indian trade is just 2% of the
that's what I
entire
heard.
trade. So I think the Indians are overplaying. For Pakistan and for Kashmir, the world didn't notice, but the Chinese are noticing, because they believe that since 1993, any treaties between India and China, they are of not value related to this line of actual control, because they believe that this new line of control, where they have taken a control recently, they believe that this is from where things will start, and we are not going to agree with India.
All right.
So I think it's a huge.
It's a very complex situation,
yeah.
but yet it is something which we really need to talk about, because this could escalate and this could lead to anything. So,
Yeah, well, one thing, when they actually changed the status of Jammu and Kashmir through Article 370 and other provisions, they were pretty much accurate that Pakistan would not come up with a military response. That's what their thinking was. But here, in the case of Ladakh, when they declared it a province of India, that means you are actually creating new borders, and those borders were disputed along the LAC and other areas, as you and all of us know. So that's where their calculation turned into a strategic miscalculation with China. Number one, the Chinese, very soft, low-key people, they went their way, they, took the time, assembled their necessary assets, and then went in response to Indian provocation, as you rightly pointed out. But then the second point is, this is what actually is where India has been misled into believing that it is a so-called emerging world power. It is not. It is still in a developing country and a long way from becoming any kind of power. And here is the argument. Look, it took Chinese so long and so much investment. A country with $14 trillion economy. This is what it takes to become a world power. And even now the Chinese are very humble. They don't claim. But when Mr. Obama, the ex-president, when he came to Bombay, he started dancing with the girls over there, saying, India is not an emerging world power. It has already become a world power. So they were misled into believing that this is their true reality, which was a false reality at that time. Number two, there's a military doctrine in India that they have developed the capacity to fight a two-front war. And this is exactly what was repeated by the Indian Chief of Army Staff just 4 or 5 days ago. It was in all the papers that Pakistan will be damaged If
Now they are talking about
Yeah.
2.5 front war.
Yeah, yeah.
And let me take the same point to
Yeah. So let me
Dr.
just
Mohammed
say,
Khan. Sir, please.
one line,
Yeah.
one liner. So these were those miscalculations that led to a disaster in Doklam also. Remember, in the upper regions of the Tibet area, where they had to withdraw. Here, the Chinese simply, cleaned the slate with 20 bodies. Over there, the Chinese simply,
And on top, sir, when you talk about
simply said, we are breathing hard, and this breath will take you away. It took them 6 months. The Indians withdrew, and General Bakshi, my friend General Bakshi, had to be very ashamed in one of these
Kamar
programs.
Chima's best friend as well, sir. I've seen General Bakshi, I think we really need
He had to be ashamed.
Interesting, sir, according to the Indians, the Chinese have claimed around 900 square kilometers, and that is not a joke. Even 1 square kilometer.
We'll talk about that.
We'll definitely talk about it. And on top of that, now they claim that they have been able to get those hills back and everything. God knows what exactly is happening out there, but I'm sure the Chinese, they have placed themselves very well, whereas the Indians are still struggling. The winter is right around the corner. You're talking about minus 20, 25 degrees temperature. They're not geared up. They're not climatized. They are just, number doesn't mean anything.
Can I make a quick reference? This meeting that has taken place between the Defense Minister Rajnath and the Chinese Defense Minister in Moscow, just recently, a few days ago, there was a heated exchange, and all reported. Chinese usually
Chinese
do
blamed
not,
the Indians,
they
yes.
do not share these kind of diplomatic heating exchanges, in public. The news was leaked out, I don't know by whom, and everything is out, and the Chinese have told them in one line, we're not giving even an inch away. That's it.
So that is the punchline, sir. Now, Dr. Saab, a couple of questions for you here. Number one, what exactly is behind the Indian hostility? I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of columnists, even the Indian analysts, they believe that they'll be getting a lot of Euro-American support so that they can confront the Chinese. Whereas, again, when you talk about the American approach, they believe in circling China. Is this what the Indians are doing, being a subservient country to the Americans and exactly doing what the Americans are telling them to do? Or is it something which they believe that they need to do because they also want to show themselves, or rather prove themselves as not only the regional power, rather the world power? Your take, Dr. Mohammed Khan Saab.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very interesting debate indeed. Let me say that there is a clash of having an intent and having the potentials to put that intent into a reality. That clash is going on in New Delhi, and that is between the political leadership of India and the current Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat. Indeed, it was the statement of General Bipin Rawat initially, once he was the army chief. He said that India can fight two-front war, that is with the Pakistan and the China at the same time. And later on, he issued another statement before he could jump onto the new appointment, that is Chief of Defence Staff, that India can fight the Indian Army, Indian military, Indian Army, Navy, Air and Air Force. They can fight 2.5 front war. That is with India, with China, with Pakistan, and against the terrorism. Things have proved later on that it was all fabricated in the fake statements by the Indian Army Chief, now the Chief of Defence Staff. Indeed, India is lacking what it is the potential, but India is indeed intending. India has the intent, but India is taking a flight which India tries to take much earlier without having the substantial position. India is neither economically sound to undertake such major conflicts, number one, nor its military is trained enough to compete the Chinese army. And for that matter, let me say, being a former army officer, that India doesn't have, Indian soldiers, Indian military doesn't have the capacity to fight even with the Pakistan army. I would say that we are less in number, but as a matter of fact, it is not matter, number doesn't matter, but it is what the determination. And India know this very well. Even let me say, share with you that today there was a condemnation statement issued by the Foreign Office of the Pakistan condemning the statement of Indian Chief of Defence Staff that we can do this and that against Pakistan in case Pakistan become part of what China is doing against the India in East Ladakh area. But let me tell you that after having said that India is lacking the potential, that is capacity to launch such an operation, yes, I agree that United States of America, the West for that matter, they are making use of the India in this particular theater. And India feels that it is substantially equipped to undertake such a campaign, forgetting the past what India was in 1962. There were indeed what India was doing, which provoked Chinese army, the Chinese government for that matter, two very, very important aspects. One, what India did on 5th of August 2019, that unilaterally changed the status of that area, which as a matter of fact was not within its purview, and that has provoked China. I remember the statement of Chinese Foreign Ministry on 31st of October 2019 that whatever India is doing in Ladakh, that is really a point of concern for the Chinese, and Chinese would not accept this in any case. And then second thing, very, very important, that was regarding the construction of the roads and airfields which India constructed in last 10 to 12 years in this particular area. And one road which was very, very strategic road, and that was indeed connecting so many other roads. In total 61 roads it was connecting, and those roads as a matter of fact become, and a bridge in between become the immediate cause of what the Chinese provocation. But having said that, what India was doing, it was indeed trying to change the status quo. And the status quo was acceptable to the Chinese because China was also waiting for a decision from the United
right.
Nations.
All right. I'll get back to you now. Sir, there's another point. Chima Saab, the kind of support the Indians have, I mean, even if you look at the Quad for that matter, Japan, Australia, USA, and India, or you look at other countries like Philippines, South Korea, Vietnam, Taiwan, these are the countries which are always supporting. There was this news about a few days ago that one of the Chinese Su-35 was shot down by the Taiwanese authorities, and then they said, oh, well, it wasn't the Taiwanese defense, it was a malfunction and the plane crashed. And the Indian media tried to capitalize on that story as if it has been shut down and now what? And they were trying to say, well, all these countries are on the same page, we're on the same page, China has been encircled. What I'm saying is that the role of media in India, because you're the person who has been on the Indian media so many times and you understand the kind of thinking they have. So just tell us one thing, that what exactly is India gaining through its media? Are they trying to prove their hegemony in the area? Are they trying to prove that, well, see, India is a country which can challenge the second largest economy or maybe the giant of Asia? What exactly do they have in their mind?
Well, I think,
or maybe are they getting the Euro-American support, as I earlier asked you?
Well, I think they're not getting the Euro-American support, and they won't get it immediately because the Euro-Americans really want to look at what is India up to. They really want to see it, and they have seen in last February 2019 what happened with them. So I think what matters at the moment is that you have recently seen the Prime Minister Modi's statement about media. Please speak and talk, and the world is watching us. But Indian media's approach is inward. Indian media does not speak to international audience. If you will go to even the English-speaking media in India, they never talk about international relations. They never talk about, although they are very well-established television stations in India, which have, by any standard you can call them, but either their approach is inward, their approach is India, Pakistan, Kashmir, because for much of the time, India has looked inward. And for this, Indian government and Indian military, they have been using Indian media to project what they call counter-terrorism in Indian occupied Kashmir. Although this is freedom struggle, but what they are projecting for a longer period of time, the Indian media is used by the military to project their activities in Indian
so
occupied
that means
Kashmir.
that the role of the Indian military or the establishment, let me put it this way, that has increased over the last decade or so, because we never knew who was the Chief of Army Staff of India, who was the Naval Chief or the Air Force Chief. Now we do know. The point is that is this whole agenda is about bringing up India, the concept of shining India, India on a rise, India on a move, India the biggest democracy in the world, India the shining economy in the world. I mean, I'm just giving, these were the areas where we all thought that maybe it is the way it is. But looking at the current economy, look at the decline in the last quarter, 24% in their GDP, sir. It's not a joke.
Minus, yeah.
And since 2016, if you talk about 17, 18, 19 and 20, constant decline in the economy. And this man who was elected as the champion of Gujarat, who's going to turn around the economy of India, he has proven himself to be the biggest disaster.
So far, you know, when he came to power, he said that good days aayenge, good days will come, acha din aayenge. But what we have seen, the good days. I think, if I take rationally, India is not in a position even to tactically engage China, because let me tell, you know, your adversary hits you where you are weak, and India, Faisal Saab, is weak in artificial intelligence. India is going to be hit the way the way Russians attacked Georgia. Even if the Georgian planes could fly in the air, they shut off all the communication. So this is where the Indians will be hit. The Indians believe that, oh, we got this, we have ordered 36 Rafale from France, 5 have come, the French defense minister is in Ambala, so we have this capability. But remember, the Chinese will not hit you while looking your Air Force. They will hit you in artificial intelligence. They will look at where they are good in space. They will look at hypersonics. They will go for quantum technology. They will go for quantum computers. The Indians will never understand. Let me tell you, we here in South Asia, we have never invested on science and technology. We have never invested in mathematics. We have never invested this artificial intelligence because of so many challenges. India has not invested on those things. The Chinese, for example, just look at the 5G technology. As I mentioned earlier, the Huawei. So, and above all, this decoupling what in China and India has come up, the Americans are not bringing those 5G technologies for India here. All what matters is that they have, as in Jaishankar's book, the India way, they believe that we are a civilizational power. And with the way Tarak Saab was mentioning that the American president has come and said that you are a great power. So they believe, they project themselves as if they are but they understand that they are a market. They are a market where things could be sold. They are not the manufacturers.
They look at them as a market where they can sell the toasters or the equipment for that matter. Exactly.
The thing is, the Indians and Chinese, the trade imbalance is of $85 billion. The moment Chinese stop sending things, the moment Indian market will
every third component, or rather I would say every second component which they use, which wherever they produce something, that product is made in India, but 80% of the components used in that product come from China. So
and above all, their Bhagwan comes from China, because all the Bhagwans, they come from China.
Even sir, when they are protesting that do not use the Chinese products, so and there is a display on the PCAP. So the PCAP is also made in China.
India could be a power, but right now they are not a power. In next 10 years, 20 years, if they keep on moving, they keep on projecting themselves. But the question about the media looks inward. They have not even moved towards South Asia, even frankly speaking. The way the Americans want to engage, they have named this their command of Indo-Pacific Command just for India to make it, or to like this, that they are in a position. But unfortunately, they hesitate to go into the Pacific there.
Because the Americans, maybe they want the Indians to do it, but they also understand at the same time that the Indians do not have the capacity to deliver. Maybe they're thinking that, well, you know, the way we used Pakistan against the USSR, there could be a similar proposition, you know, using India against the Chinese. But this is going to be a different ball game.
Last point, after those 20 men were killed by the Chinese, and, you know, Indians couldn't even make a narrative for them. The Chinese media was stopped. Chinese government they were not speaking. There was no strategic communication from China. It was complete mum from China. And while having this entire media with them, while having 1.3 billion people with them, they couldn't even build a narrative for. And let me tell you, by far now, the Indian Prime Minister has not uttered one single time the word China on his name.
Remember when this entire issue started in the Indian media said, well, or rather the Indian analysts said that, you know, the Chinese have taken a certain piece of land. or maybe a mountain. Later on, we got to know that it's not a mountain or a piece of land, it's about 900 square kilometers, according to the Indians. Now, sir, the interesting part is that even at that time, I remember there was this interview of Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, and he said not even a single inch has been snatched from the Indian. I mean, what exactly is
Well, you
happening?
know-
Nobody knows. Maybe he never wanted to say that. Now, the major question, sir, when we talk about this Quad, forget about the Quad for the moment. Now we see a very, very important and strategic relationship between the Israelis and the Indians. Earlier, Chima Saab was mentioning that when we talk about AI or certain other, I'm talking about technology, innovation, inventions here, the Indians are not as good as the Chinese are, but Chinese have mastered the art. But so when it comes, you know, when you bring in Israel in the equation, don't you think that the Indians should not be underestimated?
You know, maybe because the Arabs are not a good comparison, and that's why, in my judgment, and I have thought on this issue of Israel and its outreach in the region, wherever they play their hand, I think, yes, there are certain technologies here and there in which they are pretty good, but leaving that aside, they are also one country who import, for the most part, most of their strategic weapons and technology, either the technology or the strategic weapons. You know, take the case of F-35, that's the latest case. So we overrate the country sometime because in comparison we are not responding either in kind or in technology or in military strength or in economy the way the Israelis have been able to develop themselves as compared to the Persian Gulf states or other countries. I don't want to mention them in particular. So there is one thing where there is a little miscalculation by the analysts in this country. Number two, so I don't think they're going to get any significant military advantage. Let me give you one, I don't want to prolong this conversation. Look, they acquired, you know, the Falcon AWACS systems from Israel. Well, what did we do? We went for two options. We went to Swedish option and we went to the Chinese option. We got a fleet of eight fleet of AWACS aircrafts, and there's nothing that the Israeli technology can change in the region. As simple as that. They also drew that conclusion later on, and they have not been able to expand on that cooperation in that particular area. So, leaving that issue aside, I just want to come to the West for a second. You see, making strategic calculations and drawing conclusions, it's a very difficult job.
Correct?
And for that, you have to wait a long time to be mature enough. Indians are not there yet, number one. Number two, the United States is in a complete internal disarray, number one. The West as a whole is in a complete political and military disarray. Look what happened to, and these are the two good examples, and this is what the Indians should learn from. That is Ukraine. Take the case of Greece. That is now happening between Turkey and Greece and France and all these countries. They can't handle a very good country, friend of Pakistan, you know, like Turkey. Do you think these countries can handle the greatness that the Chinese have developed, both in terms of economic power, military power, space power, and everything in high-tech, other areas? So while we discuss all these things, the Indians need to know that they have been cut to their size in Ladakh. They miscalculated. They cannot fight a two-front war. And actually,
2.5 front war.
Let me just
they say that we can engage China, we can engage Pakistan, and if something happens in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, we'll look after that.
Look, I'm a very good student of my country's, Pakistan's conventional military power, and I'm pretty much aware of the assets that we have. I can count them on my fingers. I think the way we have now developed our ground forces, our air force is really going through a major transformation, although still we need high-tech, inroads into high-tech areas, but we are not very far behind. So in Navy we are behind, but it'll take time. But in these two areas,
Their
if
budget
there
for
is
their
a
navy is actually more than the total budget of
yeah.
the entire defense.
So
force.
let me just make it very
Pakistani.
short. The Indians are totally miscalculating the day we have a leadership in Pakistan that because we are a peace-loving country, I would put it this way. But the day we have a leadership in Pakistan that believes that there has to be another option other than the option of peace and negotiations, Indians will have to pay a very heavy price in Jammu and Kashmir because we are in a position in terms of intervention in every possible way. We can support, which we are not, the freedom movement over there. We can support the Sikh secessionist movement over there. We are not doing that. I'm making it very clear what we are doing and what we are not doing. We can really couple ourselves with the Chinese on the issue of Ladakh, and we are already there. Actually, if you carefully read what Shah Mahmud Qureshi also said, that there is we are working together after this 370 that they exercised. So Indians are really making a blunder at the present time, and we need to take advantage of that. This is where the crux is. So as I said, one day when our economic situation is better, and I hope it's not too long into future, I hope we can accelerate
Things will be better
that
because I was
process.
having a word with one of the military officers of Pakistan Army, and he said, if something goes beyond the control of the Indians and the Chinese, and if there is a limited war, and when we say limited war, there is no word should be. I didn't think there is anything like limited.
Well, there can
It
be limited and
escalate to
medium-sized
any
war.
level.
Yes,
Sir,
they
obviously
can
Air
be.
Force gets engaged and everything. Now, Dr. Saab, one question for you is about the worst case scenario. That let's suppose this conflict is not controlled and it gets out of the hands of the Chinese and the Indians. And since initially we also learned a few days ago that certain shots were fired, the Indians say that the Chinese did it, the Chinese claim that the Indians did it, whosoever did it. But let's suppose if this thing escalates, what would be the future of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir? What sort of a role you see Pakistan playing, and what exactly do you think it can, for example, it can lead to a full-fledged, hardcore, support to the indigenous homegrown movement of the Kashmiris? How do you see that aspect, sir, if the war starts?
I think that actually this Ladakh region is the only region today, what the Chinese say that this is the only disputed area. And very recently, Chinese foreign ministry and the military spokesman too, they laid a claim that this Arunachal Pradesh is, as a matter of fact, it is part of the China. And Chinese say that line of actual control is no, that's not the indeed acceptable border between India and the China. Therefore, they accept only what it is 2,000 kilometer, 1,488 kilometer. They don't accept it as a you can say that disputed area. They said it's a clear that this is part of the Chinese Tibetan area. So this is indeed a larger Chinese claim, which means that China is all set to teach a lesson to Indians at the strategic level. Faisal, one thing has to be kept in mind that for the Chinese, no, it is a matter of great concern, because if they go for anything which India desire, that would be a sort of, you can say that would be a defensive position for the China. And China being a rising power, a global power, which indeed is moving ahead. And this COVID-19, as a matter of fact, has given the Chinese a lot of impetus for that matter. Chinese, they are not going to stop here, because that's going to be a sort of a submission then. And that's going to be very harmful at the strategic level for the Chinese. Therefore, China is all set to excel, and China is all set to have these strategic areas, the strategic heights in East Ladakh, and particularly the lake area and the Galwan Valley. Therefore, I don't think so that India would, as a matter of fact, is going to fight the war. But yes, as you said that some of the aerial shots which were claimed both, Chinese said they were fired by the Indian soldiers, and India said they were fired by the Chinese. But indeed, I would say that it is from the India. Why? Because there was a lot of debate at New Delhi, Army headquarters, and at the level of Chief of Defense Staff, that who, as a matter of fact, stopped Indian soldier to fire. Once in June, 20 Indian soldiers, they were killed through the manual means for that matter. Therefore, Indian must have provoked this situation to use it in their own benefit. But the Chinese side is again very calm, very cool, but consolidating and indeed increasing the claim with each passing day. Reason being that this Ladakh and this particular area is very, very important on so many aspects, because these are the strategic areas on many aspects. One, that it is very closer to the Karakoram Pass, and you know that this China-Pakistan economic corridor is one aspect, that the closer Indian wanted to get closer to it, that was a threat for the China-Pakistan economic corridor. And this is the most important leg of Belt and Road Initiative, number one. Number two, there is a very, very important aspect that is strategic also and that is economic also. That is the Tibetan area. Tibetan area is not only the height, but as a matter of fact, it is the 5th largest water reservoir, which indeed this Tibetan area is providing water to Brahmaputra, to Ganges, and even for that matter to the Indus water system. Therefore, the Indian clash, Indian strategy, right from the Nehru, it has lot many, you can say that, visions. And the Chinese know they are countering all, and this strategic move of the China in this region, as a matter of fact, is going to do a lot for the Indians, and India cannot afford a war. Yes, very important question. You said that what is the option left for Pakistan in case there is a physical fight between China and India. I think Pakistan is at an advantageous position compared to what it was 1965. The people in the Indian occupied Kashmir, they are fully charged. Despite 1 year of siege, despite 1 year of curfew, I think India has not been able to achieve the objective it wanted to. I mean, it could not subdue the Kashmiris. The Kashmiri youth particularly, they are more ready to fight against the Indian forces, and 900,000 Indian security forces could not do anything against the Kashmiris. And let me say that out of 1.3 million Indian forces, they have already committed 900,000 Indian security forces in Kashmir, which what is left with the India to fight against China? So they will put defensive. But for the Pakistan, definitely that is going to be a position, that is going to be a stage, that is going to be an opportunity moment for the Pakistan in case there is a war.
All right, Dr.
There is
Saab,
a limited
few
conflict
minutes
in this
that I
region.
have, I really would want to put this question to you and as well as to my guests in the studio. And that is about the impact on South Asia and in particular on Pakistan if something happens. And what would be the future of CPEC? Because when you look at the area of Daulat Beg and then you go up towards Siachen, and because that is where the entire, you know, the beginning of the CPEC is. So if you're looking at that area, for example, if there is a tension there, or if, for example, God forbid, there's a war going on or something of that sort, obviously, sir, Pakistan is going to get affected, South Asia in particular is going to get affected, and the future of CPEC. Quick comment, sir.
Very small and comment that number one, Pakistan is not going to stay aloof. Number one, number two, India overall. You said about the South Asia. In South Asia, India is losing on many aspects. Maybe it is the Nepal border, maybe even I say the Bhutan, Maldives for that matter, Sri Lanka for that matter. I think Indians are in a big problem. They are losing all the important countries in this region, and that is good, advantageous for the Pakistan.
Chiba Saab, impacts on South Asia.
Well, I think if this happens, there is a probability that whatever India calls itself as a potential power, it can get exposed. One thing. Secondly, I think Pakistan is not going to get into it
Aren't we
immediately.
really underestimating the military strength of India, or is it really null and void?
I think it's not about underestimating. It's about choosing the theater of the war. Chinese will not choose the theater of the war which the Indians want they should choose. They won't fight, there won't be a fist fighting, or there won't be a fighting from one hill to another cliff. It will be a fight where, you know, as you mentioned earlier, you target your adversary where it is weak. You never target your adversary where it is strong. So I think the Chinese have...
They have really galvanized their soldiers, and the strength has been increased as
they
well.
have this, the Chinese have this power, but I think where the Indians will be hit, it will not be the ground. the communication channels will be disturbed. They will be targeted so that India feels the loss, but at the same time, the soldiers don't die. There is a probability of this. The way they didn't use the guns and they killed the men, and the entire country was in a shock and awe. So there is a probability they can damage them economically. For example, if this 5G technology they don't share them. For example, when the Indians are going for decoupling with China, so it means that the Indians are going to be hit because they are not going to get the advantages of the 5G. So this is where
This is the new, I mean, scenario. This is the new name of the game. Technology matters. and
Matters.
Technology means a lot. Sir.
Well, two, three things. Number one, Indian Chief of Army Staff himself made it very clear that the resolution of the issue does not lie in war. It lies in peace and peace negotiations. So this is where India stands at the present time. But they will continue something here and there that will keep, keep the hope alive somewhere in the hearts of Indian people that one day we may be able to deal with China with this, with this swift, tough hand. But that's not going to happen. China will remain a supreme power. There will never be a match between the two countries. Chinese technology will continue to grow. Chinese military strength will continue to grow. India remains mired into a very, very it's a modest developing country. And this is it. I mean, when you look at India, that it's a developing country, well, how much development have they really made in the last 72 years? They are assembling, they are still a country. This is in a nutshell. They are still a society and a country and a state assembling. They are at an assembly stage in their pace of progress. This is one thing. Number two, as far as the overall desire of India to become a world power, well, for that, you have to. I gave you earlier an example. You have to be the very best in all areas. Otherwise, you can never be a world power. China is a very good example. And still the Chinese modestly, as I said, claim that they are still a developing nation. And I sometimes smile at their claim. And number three, and that's the last point, Pakistan has to make strides in military technology as well as in other technologies. And we really can do that. A lot of people say in Pakistan, we have a lot of problems. We don't have a lot of problems. We still have a modest, limited, reasonable amount of population.
All right.
And similarly, we do have a lot of room to grow. India may be choosing a bad enemy in the months and years ahead.
Well, let's see,
And
sir.
Pakistan might become a very tough, nut for them.
Let's see. Let's see. The coming days would be very interesting, and the coming months would be even more. But thank you very much, Pirzada Saab, for your presence. It was a pleasure having you, sir. And thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for your presence as well. And that's all we have for this hour. But interestingly, this story is developing as we see it. We hope and pray nothing happens there, because at the end of the day, this region can get affected, because we are talking about not 2 but 3 nuclear powers in that particular area. And when you look at the borders, it's India on one side, it's China on the other, and Pakistan on the third side. So things should be diffused here, and it should have a proper logical conclusion. But anyway, I'll see you again. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.